Imagine sitting across from someone at dinner, laughing, passing the bread, talking about the kids. A science teacher. A family man. Someone whose entire life screams ordinary. Now imagine that same person, hours later, standing on a porch in the dark, gloved hands, masked face, armed. Two versions of the same man. And the only thing standing between those two versions is a pair of cheap black gloves found on the side of a road, less than 2 miles from the victim's front door. That detail alone should stop you cold. Because this isn't fiction. This happened. Welcome back to Cold Case History. I am going to walk you through every detail of this case. The footage, the forensics, the suspect behavior, the DNA, and the digital evidence trail. If you are new here, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. We cover every update on cases like this one the moment they break. And trust me, this one is not finished breaking yet. Let's begin at the beginning. Nancy Guthrie is a mother, a grandmother, a woman living a quiet life. She is not a public figure. She is not controversial. She has done nothing to make herself a target. And yet, one night, everything changes. The surveillance camera on her porch captures something that investigators will spend months trying to explain. A masked intruder moving with a calm that defies everything you would expect from someone committing a violent crime. No frantic energy. No hesitation. Just deliberate, controlled movement. And when he reaches the camera and taps the lens, it is not the tap of someone checking for a blind spot. It is the tap of someone who already knows exactly what they are looking at. That detail matters. We will come back to it. But first, let's talk about what investigators found 2 miles away from Nancy's home. Discarded on the roadside. Almost invisible unless you were looking for it. A single black glove. Nitrile construction. The kind sold in bulk at hardware stores, 100 to a box, about $10. Plumbers use them. Mechanics use them. People working with chemicals and oils use them. They are not tactical. They are not intimidating. They are disposable, practical, and completely unremarkable, which is exactly the point. Whoever wore those gloves did not want to stand out. They wanted to look like someone who belonged in the neighborhood, someone running an errand, someone doing a job, someone ordinary. And here is where this investigation takes a sharp turn. Because while forensic teams are bagging that glove, federal agents are pulling up to a house nearby. Not for the first time. Not for the second. The FBI visits Tommaso Cioni's home 5 times. 5 separate visits. And each time, the agents walk out carrying something. Brown paper bags. To most people, a brown paper bag is lunch. But in forensic science, a brown paper bag is how you preserve biological evidence. Sweat, skin cells, oil residue, anything organic that might survive on a surface like, say, the inside of a glove. Paper breathes. Paper keeps the evidence alive long enough to be tested. The FBI is not bringing paper bags because they stopped for takeout. Now let's talk about who Tommaso Cioni is, because context matters here. He is 50 years old. He is a science teacher. He teaches biology, the study of living organisms, cells, DNA, the very building blocks that forensic investigators use to connect suspects to crime scenes. He is a husband, a father, a man described by people who know him as steady and dependable. He coaches youth activities. He grades papers. He shows up. By every outward measure, Tommaso Cioni is exactly who he appears to be. And that is precisely what makes the next detail so difficult to sit with. On the night Nancy Guthrie was abducted, Tommaso Cioni had dinner at the Guthrie family home. He was there earlier that evening. He laughed. He ate. He was a trusted presence in that house. And then he left, around 9:50 in the evening. For hours later, at 1:47 in the morning, Nancy's world was shattered. For hours. Think about what can happen in 4 hours. You can drive home, change your clothes, gather your equipment, drive back, and execute a plan you have been rehearsing in your mind for weeks. You can do all of that, and still have time to think twice and decide to go through with it anyway. The distance between Tommaso's home and the Guthrie property is 4 miles. At that hour, with empty roads, that is 10 minutes. He had the time. He had the proximity. And according to investigators, he had something even more valuable than either of those things. He had knowledge of the house, the layout of the rooms, the position of the cameras, the rhythms of the family, the places where you could move without being seen. That kind of knowledge does not come from a single visit. It comes from familiarity. It comes from someone who had been inside that home before, many times, someone who felt comfortable there. And now watch the footage again with that in mind. Watch the way the intruder moves across that porch. There is no pause to orient himself. There is no scanning of the surroundings. He knows where he is going before he gets there. And the tap on the camera lens, it is almost casual, like checking whether a window is locked before you open it. That is not nervousness. That is not bravado. That is habit. That is someone who has stood on that porch before and never once felt like a stranger. If you're still here, subscribe, because cases like this only work when people stay. And tell us where you're watching from. I love seeing my global family represent. Drop your country or city in the comments. Now let's talk about the gear, because the physical evidence from this case tells its own story. The kidnapper was not dressed like someone who planned to intimidate. No tactical vest. No military-grade equipment. A cheap ski mask. A basic nylon holster. A reflective backpack you could find at any outdoor retailer. And those nitrile gloves. Everything about his appearance said, I am no one. I am not worth looking at twice. And in a neighborhood where people like Tommaso Cioni are already a regular sight, that kind of invisibility is a weapon in itself. But here is the contradiction that investigators kept circling back to. The gear was cheap, but the execution was not. The planning, the timing, the familiarity with the property, the absence of panic. None of that matches the behavior of someone who just threw a mask on and improvised. This was rehearsed. The cheap gear wasn't a sign of desperation. It was a costume. A deliberate performance designed to make the kidnapper look like an amateur so that investigators would spend their time looking for an amateur. And then there is the ransom demand. $6 million in Bitcoin. On the surface, that sounds like the work of someone sophisticated, someone plugged into the dark web, someone who knows how digital currency moves. But investigators quickly discovered something strange. The Bitcoin wallet connected to the demand had received a single transfer of under $300. Not $6 million, $300. Analysts believe that transfer was a trap set by the FBI, a way to bait the kidnapper into logging into the wallet and revealing his location. Because the moment someone accesses a Bitcoin wallet, there is a digital footprint, an IP address, a device signature, a thread that can be pulled. The wallet was never accessed. Nobody logged in. Nobody checked the balance. And that is the tell. A genuine criminal, someone with real experience laundering money and moving cryptocurrency, would have moved those funds within hours. They would have known the protocol. But this person did not move. They stayed still. And staying still when the money arrives suggests one of two things. Either the kidnapper panicked, or the kidnapper never understood that checking the wallet was the very thing that would get them caught. A science teacher is an educated person. Educated enough to set up a Bitcoin wallet. But not educated enough in the criminal architecture of cryptocurrency to know that the moment you look, they have you. Now I want to introduce a second theory, one that the investigation began circling as it deepened, because the truth here may be layered in a way that nobody initially expected. What if Tommaso Cioni was not the architect of this crime? What if he was a component of it? What if the real driving force behind Nancy's abduction was not personal but obsessional, and that obsession was not directed at Nancy at all? Nancy Guthrie is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognizable television journalists in the country. Savannah is surrounded by security. She is high profile, watched, protected. She is not an accessible target. But her elderly mother, living a quiet life in a private home, is a different story entirely. And in the mind of someone consumed by a dangerous fixation on Savannah, Nancy does not become the target because of who she is. She becomes the target because of who she can reach. This is the psychology of obsession turned violent. The stalker does not see Nancy as a person. He sees her as a pressure point, a lever, a way to force Savannah into the story, to make himself the central figure in a narrative that Savannah cannot ignore. In his distorted logic, he is not committing a crime. He is creating a moment in which he will finally become visible to the person he has built his entire inner world around. Every move the kidnapper makes on that footage, the slow walk, the camera tap, the controlled stillness, it is not the behavior of someone trying to get in and out quickly. It is the behavior of someone performing. Someone who believes they are being watched by the one person whose attention they have been trying to capture. And that changes the entire psychological profile of this crime. This was not about money. The ransom demand may have been theater, a prop in the performance, a way to seem motivated by something rational when the real motivation was anything but. So where does Tommaso Cioni sit in all of this? Could he have been used? Could his connection to the family, his knowledge of the home, his unremarkable reputation as a trusted community member, have made him useful to someone operating from the shadows? Someone who needed a familiar face, a known presence, a person already embedded in the Guthrie circle? The investigation has not closed that door. And the FBI's repeated visits to his home, the evidence collected, the paper bags, suggest that agents are still trying to determine exactly how much Tommaso knew and exactly what role he played. What is clear is this: Nancy Guthrie did not deserve what happened to her. She was not a symbol or a stepping stone or a message. She is a person, a mother, and the people responsible for what was done to her that night need to be held accountable for exactly that. The gloves are in a lab somewhere right now. The Bitcoin wallet is being monitored. The FBI has visited that home 5 times, and they have not stopped asking questions. That tells you something. Cases do not get 5 visits unless investigators believe the answers are close. And every detail we have walked through today, the timeline, the proximity, the gear, the behavior on that camera, the digital trail, the obsession theory, they are all pieces of the same puzzle. A puzzle that is coming together slowly, deliberately, exactly the way the kidnapper himself moved across that porch. And here's where I leave you with this. The investigation is active. Updates are still coming. The truth about who was behind that mask and who put them there is still being assembled piece by people whose entire job is to make sure this does not end without accountability. We will be here for every single development. If this case matters to you, and it should, share this video right now. Put it in front of people who follow true crime, people who care about justice, people who understand that public attention on cases like this one keeps the pressure on. Subscribe if you have not already, because when the next update breaks, we will cover it within hours, fully researched, no speculation, just the facts laid out the way this case deserves. Hit the notification bell so you do not miss it. And drop your theory in the comments below. Do you believe Tommaso Cioni is the man behind the mask? Or do you think someone else has been running this from the beginning? Tell me what you think. Because in cases like this one, the right question asked by the right person at the right time has changed everything before. It can happen again. Justice for Nancy. Stay with us.